Feeling left out in the cold over pensions? You've come to the right place to warm up, mate. Check out what's coming up on Grey Matters. Ooh. Hello and welcome to Grey Matters, the channel that promotes the fact that the older generation still matters and looks at issues that matter to the older generation. Now, if you're a subscriber to this channel, you may recall that in the past I've mentioned a website called Restless. It's an amazing site with a huge library of resources, especially for us oldies. Everything from health advice, well-being advice, a mass of courses that we can take, many of them free, on virtually every subject you can think of, and plenty of advice on finances and pensions. And that's what we're looking at today. Now, as Restless says, when you're busy juggling work and your home life, retirement is likely to be the last thing on your mind. After all, it's a big enough challenge working out how you'll get your next payday without going into the red, without having to think about your pension too. But here's the good news. Retirement and retirement planning doesn't have to be complicated. And Restless have compiled a 6-point checklist to make sure that you're on track for the retirement you want to achieve. And in today's programme, we're going to look at 4 of those items on the checklist. First thing is to know the value of your pensions. Make sure you've got a clear idea of what your pension savings are at the moment, because they will usually vary over the course of a year as the value of pension savings go up and down. And knowing what you have in your pot and what's available now will help you decide whether you need to be saving a bit more or if you're on track. You should be sent a statement every year by your pension provider which tells you how much you've got in your pension. Now, if you can't find yours, get in touch with your provider and ask them for a current value. Make sure that you also try and track down any pensions you may have forgotten about or lost. They reckon the average person has 11 jobs during their lifetime. Now, that's an awful lot of pensions if you've taken out a company pension scheme each time. But not to worry, restless.co.uk has got a really good article called Tracing Lost Pensions, with lots of advice to help you find those missing pension pots. So once you've located all your pensions, you need to find out exactly where they are invested. See, pension companies will have a number of funds that they use, and if, like me, you're a bit clueless about this, they will just put it into their default fund. But you need to know where that is. And the reason is there may well be funds that are better suited to you or charge lower fees. So you really need to find out. Again, restless.co.uk has got a really good article about that, which is actually called Where is my pension invested? So have a look at that. It's usually best to get yourself an independent financial advisor to help you through this. Again, check out the Restless website because they have an article there about finding an independent financial advisor who will be suitable for you. Now, point 3 is to find out how much money you think you're going to need when you retire. The best way to do that is to actually go through your bank statements, have a look at and see what it is you must pay out for, all your committed payments, such as rent, mortgage, things like that, council tax. Add a little bit extra for things like holidays and eating out. And with those two added together, you should get a rough idea of how much you're going to need when you retire. Now, I've said this in previous videos, but please try not to stress about the money situation when you do pack in work. I can tell you right now that it won't be as bad as you think it will be. At least it normally isn't. And the reason is that it's very expensive to go to work. And I've mentioned this, I know, in videos in the past. The big worry for people is, will I be able to survive on the money I'm going to have coming in? You might not qualify for a state pension. You might just start off with your company pension. My wife for a long time was earning a lot more than me, and when she retired, I was really worried. How are we going to survive just on my salary? The problem is when you're earning, you live up to that income. You don't budget necessarily, you don't put money away, you always intend to, but maybe never get round to it. So you're living up to that income. And it's surprising when you lose an income, how you can bring that spending down. You can get rid of things that you're paying for monthly subscriptions that you don't necessarily need, you like, but you don't need, and you have to start trimming. The next stage was then, of course, when I retired, and coming from my wife's income, our combined incomes, down to my pension was a worry. But here's the kicker. You will probably have more money when you've retired than you did before. When I say more money, more disposable money, more money to save. The first month after I retired, I put £1,000 in the savings. I have never put money in the savings, ever. We always mean to, but you never get round to it. There's always something you can spend that money on. I didn't realise how much money was being spent on going to work, on the fuel, or the train fares, the commuting, paying for lunches. Then there's business lunches. If you're involved in that end of things, and sometimes you can get it back on expenses, other times it's just social. You're meeting work colleagues and going out to lunch. You're meeting people from different companies or firms and going out to lunch. Not the sort of thing you can claim back, it's social. And all those expenses vanish. They don't exist. As I say, we put away £1,000 on that first month. And since then, we've kept savings going. We've had that buffer. And that buffer is so important. When you think that things can change, you might suddenly get an horrendous electricity bill. You might suddenly have to do an awful lot of travelling, maybe because you've got sick relatives or something, and so your fuel costs go up. That buffer is quite important. But if you're clever with your money, that buffer will grow. So please don't panic and don't worry about whether you'll survive, because from my experience and chatting to people I know who have retired, they've all said the same thing as well. Give up work, you actually have more money. It's quite an eye-opener, so please don't stress about it. The idea of these items on the checklist is to help you go into your retirement with your financial eyes maybe a little bit wider open. It's not just your workplace or personal pensions you need to consider. You also should factor in the state pension, because you'll probably be entitled to it. You need to have 10 years, qualifying years they call them, of national insurance contributions to be eligible for a pension. And to get the full pension, you need to have 35 qualifying years. Now, what you should do, if you haven't done already, is to contact the Department of Work and Pensions and ask for a pension statement. Now, they will send it to you and they will explain on that statement how many qualifying years you've got and how much they think you will get for your state pension. And that's quite important, because that's some money that, if you add that into the mix, could make a big difference to how you live. You either can write to them and request a statement, or you can fill out the online form that they have. It's quick and simple, and I'll leave a link to that in the description below. You can learn more about the state pension in the Restless article called How the State Pension Works. And again, I'll leave a link in the description below. Now, there are 2 more tips to go on their checklist on the Restless website. So do go over there and read the full article, because it'll be really worth your while. I will leave links to all the various articles in the description below, as well as to any online forums and things that we've talked about, so be sure to check them. And I'd be very grateful if you would leave any comments below, any questions. More than happy to try and get answers for you. I'd also like to thank the guys over at Restless for allowing me to nick their content and pass it on to you, and I hope you found it useful. In the next video, it's another travel special. We're off to Canada, flying into Calgary, having a look over there, going over the Rockies, through Banff, and then over to Vancouver. And then we'll be flying from Vancouver over to Niagara, having a look at the falls before flying home. It was a trip of a lifetime, and there's so much to see and show you, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy the trip, especially if you're planning on going. Hope to give you a few tips on what to do and see when you get there. So until then, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Grey Matters. Bye for now.